Welcome to The Intentional Way, where literally every moment is a step towards purposeful living. I'm Bryan Hatch, here to explore the power of intention with you. Learn from our guests who embody intentionality. I'm glad you're here with me. Let's get started. Welcome again to another episode of The Intentional Way. I'm your host, Bryan Hatch, and I am overjoyed to be introducing our guest today, someone that I've known for the last couple years and someone that I think is going to just blow your socks off when you get to hear all of her expertise, all the fun stuff that she brings to the table. We have Jenny Evans in the house. She is a female motivational speaker, top worldwide renowned. She's been helping a lot of different companies, from corporate environments to business environments to personal environments. She's an executive coach as well. She's just, you will know why I love this person so much. So welcome to the show, Jenny. We're happy to have you.
I'm so glad to be here, and I can't wait to have a great conversation.
There are many Jenny Evans that people can find online, but I'm telling you all, this is the one you want to know. So just bear with me. But Jenny, what is something that they wouldn't find about you online? They couldn't find it on your bio or your About Me page. What is something that people should know about you that is just important?
I probably shouldn't even tell this because it's going to create an expectation. Lately, I've been doing improv comedy just because I have no dreams of performing, but once a week coming together with a bunch of people and just seeing how silly we can possibly be is so much fun. I have been performing a little bit, but it's just for me and it's just for fun.
That is awesome.
And now people are like, oh, I bet she's going to be really funny. And I'm probably not going to be funny at all. But
they're going to put you on the spot and say, okay, tell me a joke. They're going to say that. And it's like, that's not the way that this works. But that's awesome and fascinating. Those that know you recognize that you've been on stages for a long time. You're comfortable there. You're phenomenal there. But to do it in an uncomfortable way, maybe not for you. You're a lot of fun and energy. But to get up there and crack some jokes and do some comedy.
Oh, no, it's highly uncomfortable. It's very uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Which is good. I think, and that's also why I did it, of like, I love to learn and I like that feeling of being outside of your comfort zone. And I think what really works for me, I am so unafraid to look stupid. I don't know, being stupid doesn't bother me. And I think it's probably one of my gifts.
I would absolutely agree with that. With the content I've been able to see that you've put out there online, people can see that you're willing to be yourself. And that authenticity is so valued in the world of intentionality. And that's why I thought, oh, Jenny's going to be the best guest. Jenny, tell me a little bit about your background. I know a lot about you, and I want our audience to get to know you a little bit. How did you get into the world of speaking and executive coaching and training corporate teams? Tell me a little more about how you got into that.
Okay, I'm glad you gave me a timeline as to how far back you wanted me to go. I got my start really while I was in college. I started my own business that was personal fitness training for a lot of busy executive women. Through that, you know how like just doors open. I started at Aveda, their corporate office, as their corporate director of wellness. And I really had free reign to do whatever I wanted. And I didn't realize how lucky I was. Really learned a lot. And anytime there was like a big global sales meeting, the owner of the company would just be like, you got 20 minutes, just get on stage and do whatever you want to do. And that's really sort of like how the speaking aspect of me was born. And I love being able to share ideas, content with people that has the potential to change their lives, and not just change their lives, but then how they show up at work, how they show up at home for the people that they care about. Then Estee Lauder bought Aveda. Then I started speaking for the Estee Lauder brands. Through that, I also got hooked in with an incredible organization called Human Performance Institute with Dr. Jim Lair and Dr. Jack Grapple. I spoke on behalf of their content for 14 years. They got acquired by J&J, and I was like, just the value system changed dramatically to this like smaller company that just really valued people, to a big company that just really valued the bottom line. And they started making decisions where I was like, this is violating my values and my beliefs. I'm like, ugh, it's time to go. And while I was really hurt and upset and disappointed about having to leave, I knew it was the right thing to do at the time. It's one of those things like, I'm glad it happened that way, because then I started focusing back on, what do I want my message to be? And that's how I really landed in this resiliency space. And my background in education is in exercise physiology, psychology, and American Indian studies. So it's mind, body, spirit. No, I was not smart enough to plan it that way. It was just like, oh, that looks interesting. Hey, maybe I'll try that. And then afterwards, I was like, wow, that took a long time and was really expensive. But like it all worked out. And so, I mean, when people are like, man, how did you get to where you are? And I'm like, oh, funny. You think I had a plan? No, I am just one of those people of, I love doing what I am passionate about first, and then figuring out, how can I make a living at doing that?
Yeah. What an interesting path you've taken. And I think it's fun that I want to highlight it for listeners, that you didn't necessarily know the outcome, but you were engaged in where you were at the time to help you end up where you are today. Now, I'm interested to know, have you always been a person who liked to be in front of people, that was okay with the attention, or was that grown over time?
That's such a good question. And I think one of the most important things that I do is to help people really get clear on their values, their beliefs, and their sense of purpose. Because when you do that, you have the answer key to your life. If you know what you believe, if you're connected to your sense of purpose, you're very clear on who and what should be getting your energy and who and what should not. And I've been thinking back of like, have I always been that way? I do think there is a part of me that my default is, I am pretty comfortable with myself, but also then combining the work that I do about resilience and how important purpose and living aligned. And when I was with Human Performance Institute, one of their like biggest cornerstones was, it's not about the time you spend doing something or with someone, it's the energy and engagement and focus that you bring. And so I think I'm really lucky in a way, in that because this is what I teach, it strengthens it for me. And I'm continuously learning, but I am definitely one of these people that, if things are not aligned, and one of my favorite words is, and I knew I was going to space this out, congruence. I got it. It's really important, congruence and integrity, that if this is what I think and what I believe and what I value, then these are the decisions I should be making in my life. And even when the decisions are scary and when they feel hard, when you're anchored in your truth and sense of knowing, that's what gives you, or me, the confidence and the courage to make those big decisions, to take risk, to do something where you're like, I don't know where this is going to go, but I just know this is what I have to do. And just trust that I'll figure it out. It'll all work out.
Yeah. There's so many different places we can go with what you've shared with us around not necessarily always wanting or being in the limelight, but being comfortable there. I love that you say that you're comfortable being yourself, or something along those lines.
Yeah.
And that's a value that I hold sacred. And I think anybody that can espouse that and be who they believe they are and align themselves that way is really valuable. You talked about beliefs, your values. You've talked about a lot of purpose-driven stuff here. So I want to, there's literally 5 different places I think we could go right now. I'm interested to know, what of those areas makes most sense, because your arc, what you've learned, how you came to be who you are, came through some, career centered stuff. That's not the only side of you, but I feel like you are genuinely the same person at work and at home. But at the same token, what is it that had you get into this space? You said you kind of, it fell into your lap, but you've done so well. Like, I've heard your message and it's so engaging. And you're even the way you communicated it, you said you're you really care about doing something that helps change people's lives. So there's so many places we could go, Jenny. Where do we go first?
I guess now I realize I didn't answer your question of like, have you always loved being on stage and being center? I'm not that person that needs to have like all eyes focused on me, but God, okay, so I was just reading this book called 10x is better than 2x. And it was basically like, if you ask yourself, what could double my business, or like, how could I double down on my relationships or double down on my health? There's probably like 50 things that you could do to double down. But if you ask yourself, if I wanted to 10x what I'm doing, like you would have to think super big, really creatively. There's probably only like one or two things that would really get you there. But one of the things that the book was asking you to reflect on is, what is your point of difference? What is the thing that only you can do? And as I was reflecting on that, I was like, well, I'm not the smartest person in the room. I never went to business school. I suck at math. I am great at communication. And what I realized is I think my secret weapon is just like my energy. It's my love for life. I love to have fun. I'm a very growth mindset person. And so I like to talk about things that expand who you are. Or like my favorite thing is just like a really juicy conversation with somebody about things that matter, like this. And so it's not so much that I want to be on stage, but I have information that can really help you. And I want you to hear it. I want you to have it. And I am excited about what this is going to do for you and how this can really change things for the better. And not assuming like everybody's life is a wreck, but all of us, I think there's that aspect of, how do I improve? Like, how do I be a better speaker? How do I be a better leader? How do I be a better mom, a better significant other? How do I get healthier? You know, like just the better you feel, the better you feel.
One of the words that I think that if I would describe you, not that I could actually encapsulate it in a single word, but energetic or energy, I think that you definitely bring that. And is that something that is just innate in you, or have you had to draw that out of yourself? Because it sounds like when you found your passion, it made it easy to want to share it. But is that
Mhm.
always been your tendency, is to just be excited in life?
I think so. This is so dumb. You know what it is? You know what the word is?
What?
Genergy. Okay, that was so bad. You know what? I was definitely that kid that never wanted to take a nap. My mom was always like, take a nap. And I'm like, I don't need one. And I didn't. Also, my mom wouldn't let me eat sugar as a kid because she thought it made me hyper. I am a very active person. And so I am pretty energetic. I'm a total extrovert. I don't know. I love to engage with people and I love to engage with life. It's just exciting. And the more I do that, the more it energizes me.
You said that when you were studying, you got with the physical, the mental, and the spiritual. At what point did you start getting that excited vibe around, wow, this is the thing, this is my thing? I don't know many people that share exactly the message that you do. I don't think I know any of them. There are people that talk about personal development. People talk about problems and stress and how to overcome them. But the way you couple them is fascinating. So where was that like origin point of, yeah, this is the thing?
There was a very specific moment. So, one of my many part time jobs to pay for college, I was a fitness instructor, and not because I was very athletic. It was just really an extension of my dance background because I was so uncoordinated as a kid. My mom signed me up for dance when I was 5 because I had clumsily gotten stitches twice, here and here, and I had knocked out my front tooth by the root. Any hoodle. Teaching fitness classes, I taught at the University of Minnesota. There was a professor that would always come to class but she was sort of like the invisible participant. Like she would always come at the last minute. She would just kind of sneak around to the back row. But like over time, as she continued to come, she started becoming more visible, like she started moving up in the class. She started talking, like she just started participating more. And finally, one day after class, I was chatting with her and I'm like, I'm really seeing a transformation in you. And she's like, it's because I've been exercising and I'm feeling better about myself, like stronger, more capable, more confident. She's like, I've made, nutrition changes. And it was at that moment. And I was like, man, that is so powerful that when we can change our bodies, we can change our minds. And how we think and feel is also really affects our body. And these are not two separate things. Like we always think like body and mind of no, this is one thing. Your brain is an organ. And that was like really the big thing for me because I did start out thinking, I just want to be a psychologist, a psychiatrist. Then when I started teaching fitness and just having to learn the basics of anatomy, exercise physiology, and then just like seeing how these were connected, I just got so fascinated where I like, oh, I'm going to change my focus to exercise physiology. But at that point in time, you became an athletic coach. Hi, not athletic, not going to do it. You worked in a gym. That didn't appeal to me. But I was like, I don't care. Like this to me is super exciting. And the more I learn about the physiology of bodies, of like how your brain works, the more this is helping me. And again, just kind of going back to, oh my God, everybody needs to know this. So it's just, with my growth mindset and being very curious, we don't know everything about the brain. We don't know everything about the body. So it's really fun as like these new ideas and new developments happen, saying, okay, well, like, how is this relevant to me? How could this be relevant to my audiences? And that's what gets me really excited because my message applies to everyone because chemistry and physiology of your body is affecting your brain and stress hormones are affecting your brain and your body. I love to feel good and I want other people to feel really good too. So I think that's where a lot of that just my conviction and passion of like, it sucks when you're tired. It sucks when you're unhealthy. It sucks when you don't feel good in your body or your mental health is suffering or you're feeling stressed or burned out. It doesn't have to be that way. And there's simple things that you can do to change your psychology and change your physiology.
Hey, real quick, if you're enjoying this episode, please subscribe, follow, and download our episode. Your support allows us to bring more intentional guests just like this, and it means the world to us. Now, let's get back to the episode. Well, then I think that it's time for you to explain the this. You said that like everybody needs to know this, and you've given us enough context that it's around physical, fitness area. There's some mental and spiritual aspects of it. But what is the this that we all can benefit from? What do we need to know?
The best way that I can describe it is I help people go from feeling overworked, overwhelmed, and overstressed to on fire, on purpose, and on their game. And a lot of this just really rests on the fact that stress is not something that just happens in your head. Stress is a chemical, biological event. It produces adrenaline, cortisol, and these stress hormones change your chemistry and your biology, as well as dramatically affects your brain. It really stimulates the primitive reactive part of your brain that I call Sneaky Pete. He's just this caveman. He's just very emotional and reactive. It cuts off access to the advanced part of your brain that I'm like, that's your Sheldon Cooper, man. Like that's logic, it's reasoning. It's what most of us need for our jobs. And so our lives are so full of stress. And the hardwiring of our stress response is that we experience stress, stress hormones come pouring out of our bodies. One of the things that those stress hormones do is they trigger the body to release energy from storage sites. in order to fuel your muscles immediately for fighting or fleeing. And then when we get that short micro burst of intense physical activity of the fighting and the fleeing, it burns off the stress hormones, and then we get bliss molecules. We get endocannabinoids, we get dopamine, we get human growth hormone. So there is an entire pharmacy for stress inside of our bodies, but the most important thing to get rid of cortisol is what I call a microburst. And it only takes 30 to 60 seconds of intense physical activity to create that chemical transformation, to rid your body of cortisol. So now your body is back to a state of balance, but also it's getting sneaky Pete, the primitive reactive part of your brain, out of the driver's seat and getting your advanced brain back online. Because most conversations around, stress, mindset, mentality of like in highly stressful times, you do not have access to that part of your brain. The primitive brain completely hijacks it. So you have to first change and optimize your chemistry, and then you can change and optimize your psychology. I have a series of micro strategies, just these fast, easy things that are scientifically proven to optimize your chemistry and optimize your psychology.
I think our listeners are going to pause and go back to everything you've said and remember it. So let me put it into perspective a little bit for myself. So you're saying that when I have an argument or I'm trying to think of, I've got little kids there, but they're awesome. I'm trying to think of the stresses that I have. I'm maybe mulling over a problem that happened in business or something that went wrong.
And it can even be a positive stress. It could be like
Oh.
landing a huge client. It could be having a baby. It could be getting married.
Okay. All right. That's interesting. Wow. It's interesting that I thought of stress on the negative side first. I don't think that I'm alone in that perspective because the word stress doesn't sound all positive, but I'm with you. There are good things that cause stress. I've heard other people say you go to the gym and you work out a muscle that's giving it stress. I'm positively doing it. So you make a valid point. But either way, like if I'm going to keep staying in my strugglesome part. If I have an argument or something that goes wrong, then what you're saying is I can't think clearly. And I think I've experienced that. They're like, oh, I'm not thinking clearly. And so you say things you shouldn't say or do things you shouldn't do in those scenarios. So that's a problem. So that's a part of the problem I got to cut off somehow. But then in addition, there are ways that if I did some of your microbursts, then what's the outcome of that? Like, tell me a little bit more of like, okay, I don't want to do the wrong thing. Now I'm going to take Jenny's advice. I'm going to do the right thing. I do a microburst, which is physical activity in some cases. What does that do though?
So it's ridding the body of cortisol, because cortisol is what like flips that switch, that amygdala hijack, where Sneaky Pete hijacks your advanced brain, because it's called the fight or flight response for a reason. Both of those things are a short burst of intense physical activity. And so you're getting rid of the cortisol, which is what gives Sneaky Pete primary access. And then you're getting the bliss molecules that are now restoring balance. They're slowing things back down. They're neutralizing all of just like the high revving of your stress response. So it's getting those bliss molecules, which is restoring chemical balance to your body and your brain. And, and like what people love about this message is they're like, nobody has ever explained this before.
Yeah.
Of like, my reaction is chemistry and it's biology. Of like, instead of feeling really bad that this is how I respond to stress, that's your hardwiring. That's your brain doing its job. That's your body doing its job. It's not necessarily that you suck or that you're weak or that you don't have the skills. Part of this is just straight biology. And then it helps for you to understand, of course, this is my body doing its job. But in today's modern day and age, you think about like just how much stress we're under, and the body's just pumping out these stress hormones. But most of us are stuck in a stressful meeting. We're sitting, or you're at your desk, or you're behind the wheel in rush hour traffic. So what happens is cortisol starts to build and build and build. in your body. And cortisol, not only does it cut off access to your advanced brain and make you very reactive and very emotional, but it's responsible for insomnia. It diminishes our immune system. It makes us crave high fat, high sugar foods. Like stress eating is not psychological. It starts out as biological. Weight gain, hunger, or some people like have the opposite where they'll actually lose weight because of cortisol. It's an extremely powerful hormone, especially when it's in your body for extended periods of time at elevated levels. And it kills cells in your brain. Actually, it kills cells in your brain in the advanced part of your brain. So I always tell people, like, when you're super stressed and you say, I'm losing my mind, of like 100% biologically accurate statement.
You are losing your mind. That's good. So if I'm hearing you clearly, then when I experience stress, it makes so much sense. When you hear the words fight or flight, I don't know why as a society we kind of pass over that, like, yeah, fight or flight, whatever. No, those are physical things that you had to do back in the day. But now that we live in a different society that doesn't require so much of the lion eating us or whatever the case is, that's different. But I see that as such a contrast to, I'm feeling stress. I've got to analyze this. I got to figure out, I got to breathe through some things. I'm trying to work out, okay, problem solving, step number one. And my brain's not working right. So I'm not going to get there. So you're saying, and my wife is going to love this, you're saying that every time I get upset or stressed, I should do like a bunch of push-ups, like right in the middle of that conversation. Maybe not, but something.
Doing squat jumps. You can still keep talking.
There you go. Go ahead, honey. Keep talking. I'm going to keep moving over here. I'm going to start doing some jumping jacks, and that will help me use the cortisol appropriately and then get back into a place where I could analyze my thoughts and think about what I'm going to say instead of just blurting it out. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. Or what you could do is just, if possible, to just be like, hold up. I'm feeling very triggered right now, very stressed. Give me 2 minutes. I'm going to do a couple of microbursts. I'm going to come back and I'm probably going to be much more rational. I'm going to be able to calm down a little bit. There's also specific breathing techniques that you can do. But the problem is, like, you have to remember and you have to think about that. But think about, like, when you get stressed out, what happens? Your heart rate increases, your breathing increases. It's because your body is preparing you for intense physical activity, which is be physically reactive. Do the squat jumps, do the burpees, do the push-ups, like go freaking run around the block, like getting your yayas out is an actual biological thing.
That's awesome. So while everybody can know that Jenny didn't say this, but I'm going to say this. In the middle of your stressed out feelings, do some jumping jacks, do some of the microbursts. You can find them on Jenny's website, but do something physical right in the middle of it. I mean, you can do the polite thing and say, excuse me for 2 minutes, like Jenny said, or you can do it Bryan's way and make it really weird for everybody around you. Hopefully you're like right in the middle of a dinner party or something like really, important. No, but I think that's a lot of fun. Now, Jenny, we're all about intentionality. And I think that what I want to bring back for our listeners is this is an extremely intentional way to use what's happening to your body appropriately, because we don't always know that. Subconsciously, we don't know what's happening with our body, but you're giving us a conscious way to understand what's happening and to do something different with it, as opposed to just the default way is I'm going to get upset, I'm going to yell, or I'm going to scream, or I'm going to get up pouty and I'm not going to say anything. Like, there's a lot of ways to do stressful things. I just love the advice that you give us here. And I want to find out, how does that tie in now to purpose and beliefs and values?
Actually, if I can piggyback off of what you just said, it's almost impossible to be intentional in that heightened stressful state because you don't have access to your prefrontal cortex where intentionality takes place. I love the whole idea of this podcast of, like, we all rationally know that being more intentional, it feels better, the outcomes are better, but we're like, why is it so hard to be intentional? It's because of the fast pace of our lives and the stress and the fact that Most people are stewing in stress hormones all day long. You're in survival mode. Survival mode is not super intentional. Survival mode is you just like, this is what I have to do to get through the day. And if that means multitasking, if that means I'm so exhausted by the end of the day, all I want to do is just sit here and watch Netflix and ignore the person next to me or my family. Of like, you can't be intentional in that stressed state physiologically or psychologically.
Yeah. It rings so true when I hear you say that. When I'm stressed, there's little there are things I can do to get out. Like you've said, you've given us some tips here. But in that state, if I stay in that state, I cannot be very intentional because I'm fighting my own chemistry. I'm fighting my own body around it as opposed to my mind, just my mind.
Yeah.
Which being intentional is already a mind game. It's already something you got to work through. And if you're already getting hijacked, as you call it, then it's very hard to do anything else about it.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Jenny, there's so much I want to explore, but I do want to make mention of the things you're up to. I know you do a lot of speaking, you do a lot of training, but this phrase that I've heard recently from you is soul on fire. Can you give me how does that tie into what we've been talking about?
Yeah. Okay. So after much deliberation, I've always worked directly with businesses. I don't work a whole lot with individuals, but what I was really seeing, when it comes to the amount of stress that we're under and really wanting to live intentionally, this is a struggle for everyone, especially for women, because a lot of women are really kind of stuck in this mindset of, I want to be really great at work and I want to be really great at home and I want to be a great significant other. And if I'm a parent and I'm also taking care of my parents, that is a ton of stress. And a lot of women, once you start moving up into leadership, there's fewer women at the top. It can be very isolating. It can be very lonely. Women also prioritize other people's needs in front of their own a lot of the time, which can really lead to a lot of loneliness and disconnection, especially when you're giving a lot of your full and best energy to the people that you love and care about. Like your girlfriends, your social circle just kind of disappears. And so I am launching an online group coaching and community for women called Soul on Fire, where every month there is a topic. It's mindset, it's resilience, it's motivation, it's leadership, it's health, it's energy. And I'm going to be doing live group coaching around the topic. You're also going to be put into a mastermind group with 3 other women. And so you'll break out into your mastermind group. We'll all come back together. There's hot seat one-on-one coaching. Every quarter, you get a new mastermind group, but it's really a place for specifically women who they're like, my life technically looks really good on paper, but why am I still not happy? Or thinking like, man, is this all there is? Or I'm feeling stuck. And I think that intentionality is such a huge part of it. I think for all of us, we just start getting going in our to-do lists throughout our lives, the boxes we think we're supposed to be checking that will lead to our happiness and our fulfillment, only to realize that's actually an inside job. And having clarity on your beliefs and your purpose and living in an intentional way that is aligned with those things. So it's really an opportunity for women to come together and really kind of talk about, these are the challenges that I'm having as a woman, as a mom, an entrepreneur, a member of society, as a leader. And how do we all up our games? And how do we feel a sense of community and connection? That is so important to resilience as well, like feeling part of a community. So that is launching March 15th. And
cool.
It's going to be just a group of kick-ass, powerhouse, lady balls women who are just up-leveling themselves in all areas. And oh my God, we're just going to have so much fun.
Well, you ended on such a positive note. My thoughts go to, obviously, I've spoken on other episodes about this. Like, I don't know what it's like to be a woman. I don't claim to, but from my perspective as a man, I have a wife, and seeing what transitions she goes through from having kids to raising kids to, professional aspirations and desires. And I know that you work with a gamut of people all the way up the corporate ladder, CEOs and entrepreneurs. So I recognize that you serve women in so many different facets. But I look at a female life, and I hope this comes off correctly because my intention is to serve. Like, I just don't think it's fair. It's like, oh my goodness. And I'm not even talking about like discrimination or other things that maybe you could say literally it's not fair, but I'm
On
saying
top
just
of
in
that.
general, my
Yeah.
gosh, dude, so much mental games, so much like heartache. And then even you're a mom and your kids go off and get married, and then you're like struggling with that loss. And that's just a facet of so much. I think anybody listening can learn from you. But if you're a female in that scenario, you have a lot to work on, that you want to work on. And having someone like you that understands the mental side, spiritual side, as you mentioned, we haven't got into that a lot, but that's okay. And the physical side, and how those all meet together to produce an intentional person that is up to making some cool things happen in their life. And I think, I don't want to speak for you, but women, you can define what you want and go after it. It doesn't have to be the CEO, but it can be the CEO, like whatever you are after. I love that you're serving that space. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm super excited about it. I mean, everybody's like, wow, perfect timing with what's happening in the world. But everybody says that anytime anybody, any gender is in one of my keynotes, so often they're like, this was perfect timing. This is exactly what I needed right now. Even if you're killing it in your life, we all need support. We all need community. We all need connection. And the more we do that, the better we all are.
So part of what you've done with the Soul on Fire, in the format of it, it sounds like you've created a way for women to regain their network. You said that it's easy as a woman to lose your sisters, the people that are around you, because of all that's going on. And it sounds like you're giving them an opportunity to create deep connections. That's the thing I think we're missing in this. We have social media and all these things that like keep us quote unquote connected with people, but I don't think it's deep. I think it's so surface, like, look at my vacation and look at my kids and look at this and look
It's
at my
not
company. But
intentional.
it,
Yeah.
it's so
It's so
topical.
transactional. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, again, the need for more intentionality in our lives, because that's where the peace comes from. That's where the fulfillment comes from. That's where the clarity comes from. And I mean, and I know for a lot of women, everybody goes through this. You sort of lose your friends. And if you have kids, your friends actually are the parents of your kids' friends,
Mm-hmm.
So like you get some friends and they can be lovely people and you enjoy spending time around them, but they're not like your ride or dies.
They're not intentional.
And so it's interesting for a lot of women who they're like, well, I do have social time, but is it fulfilling? Does it feel like an obligation? Is there connection? Do you feel like you get to show up as your authentic, true self? Is there an opportunity for you to confide in people of like, hey, here's where I'm struggling, and to have other people just be like, me too, or girl, I have been there. I think all of us, for some reason, our brain can easily play tricks on us that if and when we're struggling, the brain tells us, well, you're the only one, because clearly everybody else has it together. When you have a community or a family or a friend group where you're like, I don't know what I'm doing, and everybody else is like, oh, I don't either. And you're like, I'm not the only one. No, this is the human condition. Nobody really knows what they're doing. We're all making it up as we go along. But man, you don't have to do that by yourself.
There's so many relationships that we have in our life that come by way of default, that, like you said, kids, parents, and now they're become friends. But it's not the same level of person where you get to share things that matter. And I want in the vein of intentionality, the word mastermind, I think it's now become such a part of our society that people think they understand it, but I don't think that they understand it. Like
Yeah.
mastermind, if you look at the definition of Napoleon Hill, he's the one that kind of coined it. If I'm not, maybe I'm mistaken, but that's how I first understood the word, that it's two or more people combined to solve a challenge. And so, if you're meeting with someone, your kids' parents, your kids' friends' parents, like, are they helping solve your problems? I probably not. Like, they might be. There might be some really close relationships, but to have someone that's like, all right, Jenny, what's going on? Let's hear what you got. And not that I can fix all of your problems, but I'll certainly give you some advice and some tips of, oh, I've been there or whatever the case is. But it's people coming together to solve challenges, not just have a conversation, right? So,
Yeah. And if I will add something extra, because all of the masterminds that I've joined have been to solve specific business problems. Like, how do I learn? How do I overcome these people who are, ahead of me, before me? What can they teach me? If they're like, I know somebody that can help you, great resources. But every single time throughout the mastermind, you're like, oh, you know what's really great about this mastermind? This was the therapy I didn't realize I needed.
mm,
Because it is that safe space, and you're with other people that are like, I get it. I've been there before. I have felt that way 10 times before. And here's what
yeah,
I did. This might help you too.
yeah, that's wonderful. So then, if listeners are hearing this, and I recognize that there's going to be people that listen to it right as we get this episode out, in addition to in the future, tell us a little more about how they can get involved and find you, because I don't want anybody that has heard you today not have the opportunity to connect in some way, shape, or form. Obviously, the Soul on Fire is a great way to do that, but how are they going to find you, Jenny?
Yeah, jennyevans.com. All of my resilience work is there, coaching, speaking. If you're interested in Soul on Fire, there's a link at the top. You can just click or go to jennyevans.com/soulonfire. We also have a YouTube channel where we've got hundreds of very highly produced, short-ish videos on all kinds of resiliency strategies for anyone. So know that that's also like a really great free resource for you. I always tell people, like, if you like the video, show it the next time you have a meeting. Like, man, everybody can benefit from that. So tons of free resources on the website. I mean, for me, that's really important. Like I said, I want a lot of people to feel a lot better.
Yeah. Well, Jenny, I think that listeners need to understand that the level you engage in things is the level that you get out of it, right? If I toe step into something, that's what I'm going to get out of it. And so there are times in our lives, and I hope that listeners, I'm thinking of a few people on my mind right now. I hope that you jump into whatever level of intentionality you can. Obviously, Jenny is a great resource to help you with that right now, but go all in. You're going to have better success, because it's not the person that joins the P90X and does a workout once a week that has the ripped abs at the end of the thing, right? So note that I don't have guests on my show that I don't trust. I just don't. And Jenny is one of those people that you can trust. She is genuine, heart-centered, just an amazing person. So I encourage people that are listening to go get engaged with Jenny at the level that you possibly can, because it's going to be a benefit to you. And I just love what you're up to. But I still think we need to bring this together a little bit, Jenny. You mentioned at the beginning of our show that you care about helping people with their values, their beliefs, their mission, their purpose, right? How has this become such a thing for you? We talked about maybe the what you did, but why is that so important to you to help people? You don't have to help people. You don't. I mean, you're a good person. I think that I've seen that in you, but why is it so important to you?
I mean, because life is challenging and it can be really overwhelming. And there is no manual, there is no handbook for life. There's nowhere to go to find the answers, but the answers do exist. And they're right here, that your sense of knowing, tapping into what do you know to be true? What do you believe to be important? And I'm not talking about like your, political beliefs, but an example is I've said this, but one of my top beliefs is I'm a growth mindset person. I love learning. I love getting outside of my comfort zone, taking risks, playing big. Uh, That is a huge part of how I make decisions in my life of like, well, I believe in growth. So am I just scared of this opportunity? Or could I also say, man, this is an opportunity for me to really learn about something that I don't know. I can learn about myself. Something really awesome could happen. It's having this internal compass for your life. But unfortunately, I don't know anybody who, as a part of their education, whether it was in elementary school, high school, college, business training, people are like, okay, everybody talks about knowing what your purpose is and how important it is. How do I do that? It feels so big and overwhelming of helping people break it down, asking questions to help them start to get clarity because it does create a sense of feeling anchored of I trust in the universe, I trust in myself, I'm strong, I know the decisions that I need to make. And that leads to being intentional. I mean, if you don't know what you believe, if you don't know what you value, like society tells us what we should value. What we should value in according to society is having more money, more power, a higher title, a bigger house, fancier car, more television. Statistically, when you look at happiness rates around the world, some of the most developed countries have the lowest rates of happiness because you're buying into society's value system. So if you're not clear, like, what do I as a person value? What do I want to spend my time doing? What do I want to really give my energy to? And when we're living a more intentional, values-based life, not only are we making different decisions, but the sense of happiness and fulfillment that we get from those decisions is so different than like buying yourself a new outfit or, making a difference in somebody else's life. Like, how long is that fulfillment gonna last? We live in a consumer driven society and it only works if you get people to spend their money. Well, money is really valuable. So how do you get people to spend their money? Scare them. Tell them you don't look the right way. You don't have enough stuff. You're not keeping up. And so then you're driven by fear versus when you know your values, when you know your beliefs, when you know your sense of purpose, your whole life becomes more intentional. You are more resilient. You are more fulfilled. I mean, one of the questions that pushes my button anytime I'm giving a keynote or I'm on a panel and somebody's like, well, what's the one thing that people need to do? And I'm like, there is no one thing. It's all of these things. But in the 30 plus years that I've been doing this, the most important, most powerful thing I think you can ever do as a human being is to get clear on what you believe and what your sense of purpose is. Mark Twain has a quote that I love. The two most important days in a person's life are the day they were born and the day they figure out why they were born. Oh, that one gets me every time.
That's beautiful. When I hear you say getting clear on your purpose, for me, this show doesn't happen without that work. It doesn't happen. The intentional way is not a thing without that purpose-driven work. That's how I can speak to it. And Jenny, you've given us a ton of wisdom. I still want to come back to one thing for you is why is this so important to you? Why is this message of, because I think it'd be easy for people to look at you and say, oh, she's the resilient lady. She's the stress-free lady. But what I've heard more than anything is that you help people get clear on their purpose, beliefs, values, and rock that to go make cool things happen in your life that for me, drives all from intentionality. But why do you do that?
Because my purpose, Bryan Hatch, is to help myself and others push the envelope and enjoy what's inside.
It's beautifully said.
I mean, like your purpose, these are the things that you are pulled to do where you're like, I can't help but just get fired up. I can't help but that my soul is on fire because this is the very best expression of me. So much of our life is all of the things we feel like we should do, we're supposed to do. That's a freaking drag. What are the things that you want to do? What are the things that you are being pulled to do? What lights you up? What just gets you so freaking excited? Or on the flip side, I always like to tell people, if you're struggling there, make a list of all the things that piss you off. Like I experience an outsized amount of rage when I see somebody put trash in the recycling. I'm like, how hard is it, people? Like, you just wrecked all the recycling. It's not hard. Clearly, I have a belief about the environment and sustainability, so like, what are those things that just freaking push your buttons? Well, that's an indicator that there's a belief or sort of a sense of purpose that you feel is being violated. And this is work that you don't just do once in your life. I always tell people, like, we all understand that every single day, you got to feed yourself. Every day, you got to brush your teeth. Every day, you got to move your body. Like the clock resets, the Etch-a-Sketch gets shaken every 24 hours. You also need to be training spiritually. What is my purpose? What do I believe? Time for reflection. Getting to know yourself, because you're not the same person you were 5 years ago, 15 years ago. You're not the same person that you were yesterday. This is something that requires our energy and our intention on a daily basis, because when I wake up and the first thing that I do is journal, I have an entirely different human experience than on the days I just wake up and I just start becoming reactive. I'm like, okay, what emails? I got my to-do list, it's right here, versus like starting from a place of intentionality of what really matters, who really matters, who am I, what thoughts am I having? Because we have so many horrible, mean, unconstructive thoughts on a typical day that we're completely unaware of, that start to become our stories, that start to become our truth, and it starts to become our lives. Like, we're the creators. We are the authors of our own story. And you can only realize what your story is when you are intentionally looking and reflecting on what is that inner voice, that private voice? What is that tape, that loop that's playing? Like, is it inspiring me? Is it spurring me to action? Or is it keeping me stressed? Is it keeping me anxious? Is it keeping me playing small?
I love it. I think of the words as should and supposed to as asterisks, as things I should look into. When I say the word should, I just said it in the sentence, right? But when I say those words, I need to look at those. And if it aligns with my values, with my beliefs, with what you've said, then the should make sense. Because, okay, we'll step up, Bryan, because you said congruence at the beginning. To be congruent, if I say I should do that because it's congruent with my life, then that makes sense. But to at least look at those, anytime I hear the word should from my mouth, I look and say, is that connected to my purpose, or is it something I need to investigate? It doesn't mean that all things that I should do are bad. No, there's a lot of things I should do that are good. And thinking that through a little bit is really powerful. So thank you for bringing that to mind, Jenny. As we close up, is there any other thing on your mind about intentionality or about what you do that we need to be aware of?
That's a big question. I'm always struck by how often we are searching for things outside of ourselves, answers outside of ourselves, happiness, outside of ourselves, when honestly, everything that we need for a really happy, fulfilling life is already inside. It's there. It's always been there. And to just like myself, I find myself doing this all the time of looking outward. I think the more we all look inward, the better off we are physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, socially, probably even financially. Yeah. I mean, as human beings, I'm like, dang, we love to complicate things. We like to make things so flipping difficult. But like being in the present, being intentional, like that is such a simple thing that is such a powerful game changer of it's a tool that we all have access to. We just need to remember that we have it.
Oh, what a beautiful message. We have not heard that said on this show, and I love it. Look inward because we look outward to find answers to a lot of things. Beautifully said. I want to reiterate to those listeners that have been joining us and have made it to this part of our conversation that you can find Jenny at jennyevans.com. You can find her Soul on Fire coaching experience there. You can find all sorts of great, useful piece of information that'll help you when you're dealing with struggle, stress, or just figuring out your purpose and living into it. I am just so honored that we have you here today, Jenny. Thank you so much for being here with us.
I love that you're in my world, Bryan. You're such a positive addition. So I'm lucky that you're in my world. And I think anybody who watches and listens to you is also super lucky. So thank you for having me.
It's a joy. I look forward to a future conversation to follow up with all the questions that came from the Spitfire that you gave us early in the episode. So thank you so much.
Awesome. Thanks, Bryan.
Thank you for joining us on The Intentional Way. I'm Bryan Hatch, and it's been a true privilege to share this time with you. If today's episode has inspired you in any way, shape, or form, please subscribe, follow, and download our episodes. Your support not only helps us grow, it also enables us to bring more insightful conversations and exceptional guests right to you. Living intentionally begins with a single step, yours. So let's make the most of it. Until next time, seek intention by being completely present.